Welcome back to my happiest place in the entire world. For the last couple of days, we hadn't been recording. It's only because I got a USB port that I was so excited about. I told my wife last night, I was like, it got here. And she was like, what got here? I said, the USB port, it's powered. And she looked at me like I was the dorkiest dude in the whole entire world. But it's the small things that make you joyous and lift up your heart. So for the last couple of days, I haven't been able to be in the studio because of that point. But what I want to tell you is, number one, my heart is full that I get to be here. But also, two, you can feel someone's heart right when you come in contact with them. And this young man that you're going to get a chance to meet, Mathew Kerbis, we're going to call him Kerbis, or we might even call him some other names as we go along. He is the subscription attorney. And the coolest thing is when we hopped online today and we got a chance to talk, you could feel his heart come right through the screen. This man is a disruptor. He's been in his industry in the law profession for over 10 years, and he's disrupting what people are doing, taking the billable hour thought process and bringing it into the subscription process, and how a business can have a general counsel but not have a general counsel price. It's incredible, this part of it. And so we're going to be talking about that, but mostly we're going to be talking about, he's from Chicago, so we love him. And the Titans are going to be playing the Bears this week, or in a couple of weeks. So we're going to be talking about how the Titans are going to be dominating as much as possible. Also, I'm going to get a chance to be able to spend time with Mr. Mathew Kerbis at NiftyCon in Salt Lake City, and he's going to be sharing his absolute genius. He's got a podcast too that you need to be able to check out. We're going to have the links for all of those things, but I can't wait for you to meet my new friend. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Champ is here. Mr. Kerbis, how you doing, Mathew?
Hey, Kelly. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell me how $19.99 can get me a general counsel.
And just to be clear, that's $20, $20 a month. I'm doing the $19.99 thing intentionally because I do want to let people know that while every other lawyer is selling themselves as a Porsche, I'm a Toyota Corolla. I'm Target. They're Neiman Marcus. I'm Target, and it's okay, because at the end of the day, in particular in this Gen AI world that we live in, like, legal services are becoming more and more fungible, and it's going to be about that personal relationship between you and your attorney, and the systems around the delivery of those fungible legal services that are going to matter. And so, yeah, starting at only $20 a month and $50 a page, you get legal advice, and you get substantive legal advice. Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting to me because a lot of times small business owners, and when I say small business owners, that could be up to 500 employees, right? And, a small business owner a lot of times doesn't have the funding to be able to have a general counsel, or even be able to have an attorney with them. And so this is one of those things where it blows me away. What made you think of this, and why go this route? Because, obviously you went to DePaul, you have many awards, you've been doing all these things. Most of the time, someone would sit back and beat their chest and say, like, the only way that you can get to me is X, and you're making yourself accessible to the people who really need it.
Yeah. Part of it is most lawyers, if they really needed to, and they're in private practice, they have a billable hour, they could not afford their own fee. Like, that's the truth. And I've given a lot of CLEs over the years now on this topic, and I like to ask that question. Raise your hand if you could afford your own legal fees if you really needed to, and not a hand goes up. And so part of this model that I've designed is because I wanted to be able to afford my own legal fee if I really needed to. And I came to learn that that's what people who are smarter than me in this space called having a client-centric practice. But it really takes me back even to like my like early education days, like reading what's the book? It's the To Kill a Mockingbird, right? It's got Atticus Finch, like famous lawyer in there, right?
Mhm.
But my biggest takeaway from reading that book, I think it was like freshman year of high school, was Scout learned to see things from other people's perspectives, to step into their shoes. And I still like, I just got chills again thinking about the end of that book when she goes to stand where Boo Radley was staring out at the whole story, and she reimagines the whole story in the context of his perspective. And so like that really sunk in with me. And I always just try to put myself in the shoes of other people and try to see things from their perspective. And legal services are completely inaccessible at an unknown billable hour rate. And like even in the contingency space, like they say the lawyer gets a third, but like really, because yeah, sure, but like, you don't get 2/3, and that's usually what they think. Like the medical providers, if you're in personal injury with contingency, they get the other third usually, and then there's cost taken out. So like you're really left with like 20 to 30%, and so like even that is a little bit obfuscated, and so I want pricing certainty for my clients, and as a small business owner, that helps me too. Like the subscription model so well aligns the users of the subscription and the provider of the subscription, because now with predictable pricing for my clients, I have predictable revenue for me.
That's incredible, man. So when you look at it, when you went through, how did you figure out the topic or the tech to be able to do it? Because we were talking about this before we started recording, and I was saying that most of the time when you take a highly intellectual person like yourself with the type of education that you have, most of the time people lock into that part of it, and then they won't allow tech to be married with their intelligence because they feel that they'll be less important.
So I do hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're always talking about tech, right? Like I was using GPT-3 before ChatGPT launched because I knew some developer developing with it. And so I was playing around with it, and it was kind of cool, but it was clearly more of like a parlor trick. But because of that, I was just there day one when ChatGPT launched, right? And I could immediately see the revolutionary leap in this tech just because I was there. And so it's kind of like when I was in law school, you know, I went to over 60 networking events my first year, 60. And I could trace directly going to one of those events with my whole career and like where that landed me. So sometimes just showing up and like being there or playing with the tech, just playing with it, having fun with it, like just put you in the right place, right time. And so I've always had fun with technology. I've always been an early adopter of technology. And so I was using all these tools. I like my one of my most used tools today. And if those of you you're watching live, you'll see I have this little mug called Calendly Connectors. They sent this mug to me because I'm like a little bit of an influencer for the Calendly space. Let me just wet the whistle for a second there, and because Calendly
Perfect
had this.
product placement, man.
Right,
Perfect.
right. I mean, like, I'm not paid, but like, I'm always talking about Calendly because I got an email with somebody like, here, schedule a call with me, whatever it was, like 5 or 6 years ago. And I thought this is revolutionary, and that's called product-led growth, right? Because like they let you use the tool for free if they get to have their branding around stuff. And so I started using Calendly immediately. Right? Like if you're not, I was always told if you don't have an assistant, you are your assistant. Well, I say my tech is my assistant. Calendly is my assistant, right? And
Mm.
there's all these other scheduling tools out there, right? There's Acuity, there's Microsoft Bookings, Google Appointments, right? Like I do have no like true loyalty to Calendly. It's just the best tool, and I've used it for 5 or 6 years. Um, but there's a lot of other options out there for that kind of a tech. I just happen to use Calendly first. I really like it. I continue to use it and leverage it. And as that product has developed over the last several years, I've always gone in and adapted. Because one of the things in particular, like if you're a lawyer, especially, like we're always learning about updates and changes to the law. So we should be comfortable with change and,
Mm.
and adaptation. But a lot of lawyers, because they bill by the hour, are not incentivized to apply that same mindset in the tech space. And I do. And since I'm not billing by the hour, I'm incentivized to adopt all the fancy tech. to try to speed processes along while not reducing the quality of work. And so that's what I always tried to do. And I always wanted to do that, but couldn't do that at a billable hour firm because it would reduce the revenue of the firm. And I had billable hour requirements I had to meet. So the incentives were not aligned. And that's another reason why I just had to leave and start my own practice.
How can you marry the two, right? So sometimes what people talk about is when you bring a volume scenario in, then we lose the personal touch. We have the personal touch, we can't do the volume. So, and most businesses do this. They say, okay, well, I can't touch as many people, so I just need to charge the amount of people just more. Then there's the side of I need to do volume. If I do volume, then I just need to charge less. Is there, I mean, how do we marry those two and where we keep the personal touch, but add the tech to it?
Right. I think law is actually a great industry to do exactly that. Part of the reason why is a lot of things that lawyers do are easily repeatable processes. And technology, more than ever before, automates a lot of those things. Like if I'm putting together a lease agreement or an asset purchase agreement, like 90% of that document is going to be the same. It's the 10% that is nuanced and unique to our client. Same thing if you're in litigation, a complaint, discovery. Like I would have to propound discovery a lot when I was in litigation, and all I really had to do was change the caption, change the party names, maybe one or two facts in there. So there's a lot of find, replace all. There's a lot of like reading and making sure like it's slightly customized. Well, with tech now, you could just type in the facts into whatever your preferred automation platform is. One sponsors my podcast. And so they are sponsors. So Kelly, we didn't clear if I could list sponsors of my podcast here. So I'll
You
keep
can
that
say whatever
under
you
DL.
want, man. We're good.
Okay. All right. All right. So one of my sponsors, Gavel, lets lawyers bring in their own documents and automate it. And so now I never need to do the control replace all. But when a client gets onboarded with me, and there's your Clios in my cases, and they do some of this too. They're a different tool than Gavel. Gavel's like an automation platform first and foremost. So I think it does it better, just like Calendly does scheduling better than Microsoft bookings. But if you're already paying for a tool, I can understand why you'd want to keep using that tool, right? But what Gavel lets you do is now when you do intake with your client and they type in all their information, it will automatically fill out those discovery documents for you, right? So like you could automate so many things that a client probably doesn't want to pay you for the billable hour anyway, and you probably ethically shouldn't be billing for something like that anyway. But when you decouple time from money, now any value you could provide is a subscriber benefit, right? Is a client benefit. And that goes far beyond just the quote unquote legal specific stuff that you could only bill time for. But like now I've become a strategic advisor, a strategic partner for my clients, whether they're individuals or small business owners, because I myself am an entrepreneur. I represent a lot of entrepreneurs. So I could provide so much more value that's not just legal to them. And that just makes the likelihood that they stay subscribed to me increase because I'm providing far more value than just the legal stuff, which is all they'd be willing to pay for if I was charging them hundreds, or some lawyers charge thousands of dollars an hour. Right. And then they don't call you. They don't contact you. I have great relationships with my clients because they're not afraid to contact me. And so they just like really it's a total mindset shift when you're not billing your time when it comes to adopting technology and using technology, because you suddenly think of, oh, wait, like I could just completely get rid of this process. And that doesn't mean that you have to fire anybody. Even in particular in like the Gen AI space, if you've already hired, it just means you're able to 5x, 10x productivity of the people that you already have. Or if you're a true solo like me, you could continue to scale and bring in more clients and bring in more volume and just automate all the background stuff that an admin used to do. And now I'm only actually interfacing with the clients when it makes sense to, and when I'm able to provide that added value that the tech simply can't.
Now, could a person, this is just devil's advocate, or let's call it angel's advocate, could a person take and utilize the processes and in a non-subscription base, or does this only work in that? So the reason why I'm saying is because I have a friend named Nate. You give a shout out to Nate. Say hello to Nate.
What's up, Nate?
Okay, cool. So Nate, that's Kerbis, or Mathew, as some people call him, but I'm his buddy, so I call him Kerbis. So Nate does wills and trusts,
Mhm.
And could these automations work well and still keep their payment model, or does it only work with the subscription part?
Not only does it work with estate planning, the automations, but it actually makes you more profitable because when you're not billing your time, and flat fee lawyers have known this for a long time, less time equals more money. That's right, less time equals more money. And so, yes, the automation, like they could provide the same exact value. So when you stop thinking about time, you start thinking about value. Is the value is what you're selling your client how many units of time you've spent on the estate plan? They don't want to buy that. That's not what you're selling. The most successful estate planning attorneys know what they're selling peace of mind, right? And not even for that person, but for their family members. That's what they're selling. And so that value is the same. In fact, I think the value goes up if you could turn that estate plan around in a week instead of a month or two, right? Like now they get it faster. And almost always when you get something faster, that's of increased value. But lawyers who bill by the hour don't do fast turnaround because they're not incentivized to do fast turnaround. They want to spend a lot of hours on something. And where the subscription model comes in with estate planning, where you could do a lot of different things. I don't want to create any limitations on whatever anybody's imagination for how they could apply the subscription model to estate planning or any other area of law. But because I interview a lot of lawyers on my podcast, Law Subscribed, and I've had several estate planning attorneys. And what I've seen them do in that space very successfully is an annual check-in or an annual maintenance plan. Okay, we finished your estate plan. And even if you sign up for this annual check-in, maybe we gave you a discount on that flat fee. You become a subscriber right away, you get a discount on that estate plan. And now once a year, or if you want to pay more, quarterly, or if you want to pay more, monthly, we're going to check in, see how things are going. Have there been any changes? Have you sold that home? Have you gotten divorced? Have you had another kid? Whatever it is, and we just update it for you. Doesn't even cost anything because you're a monthly subscriber, right? So like things like that, like there are opportunities to leverage that subscription model. And what's really amazing about the subscription model, regardless of practice area, and in particular, I'm going to be talking about this at NiftyCon in much more detail. Uh, but would you rather spend money marketing or make money marketing? Because guess what? If people are paying you every month, who do you think they're going to go to when they have a legal thing? Who do you think? And we could refer cases across jurisdictions, across practice areas. And so you could still make money even on things from your clients that you don't practice in that area of law. And in particular, since I'm a general practice transactional attorney, I do mile wide, inches deep law. If it gets more than inches deep, with the exception of certain areas that I've been practicing in for a long time, like real estate, I got to refer that out. Like I'm like true general counsel in that, like a general counsel attorney for a company typically will not show up in court litigating on behalf of that client, right? They're not going to actually do the patent prosecution to try to get a patent. They're going to hire an outside patent firm, right? So in the same way, I will find for my clients specialized outside counsel when things go too deep for what my practice area, for what my fee structure allows, and for what my competence will allow. Because I can only provide legal services in areas that I'm competent in. And in certain practice areas, when it goes more than inches deep, I'm no longer competent. Can I get competent? Sure, absolutely. But for my business model, it makes more sense to find that specialized counsel and refer them the business. And so my clients are coming to me even for areas of law they know I don't practice because they're paying me at least $20 a month. And they're coming to me first. So I'm not spending money marketing to them. I'm making money. And I am also giving them substantive, like legal help along the way too.
So is there a certain amount when you do a subscription model? Is there a certain amount that you can't go past that'll cause a bind up? So when you're working with multiple people, do you set that target before you actually start saying this is the amount of people that can be in my subscription? Otherwise, the service will actually go down.
It hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
And so I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now, a little bit
Uh-huh.
more,
Yep.
this particular model. And it hasn't happened yet. In fact, Gen AI hit the scene, fast enough that like I was able to like create some even better automations and do some other incredible things that helps me get the work done faster. And so like I'm still reading almost everything, right? Like because like the Gen AI is really good. In particular, the ones that the tools that I'm using are like really well designed, and the hallucinations are practically non-existent. Um, but at least right now, as I'm still testing out a lot of tools, like I'm still doing a lot of reading of most words in a document kind of a thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Or like even if it, but like when it needs to draft something for me or draft changes, like it has it done in a second. Or like, like in the old days, a partner would give me an assignment and I'd have to go work on it for like a week or two. Well, those same types of things that I would give to an associate, the AI has it back to me in a matter of minutes, if not less than a minute, right? So like my ability to do more work at the same level, the time it takes is significantly less than it did when I started my practice, right? So like I haven't reached that level of, okay, my everyday people subscribers at $20 a month, which by the way, a lot of business clients or solopreneur clients, also I call them freelancer clients, they will start at $20 a month, $50 a page, and then move up the subscription level because I stopped counting pages if you're a freelancer or small business owner, and we just count projects. And a project could be 1 page, could be 100 pages. Let me tell you, I've never seen a 100-page contract. It's never happened. But if it happened to a client who's been subscribed for a long time, I'm happy to do it for them as just one project because at the end of the day, they've been a good subscriber. I want them to stay a subscriber, and that's gonna and they know that if I charge them $50 per page, their value for that month is incredible value. And they're getting it. Even if I just help them with just that one project and not the other ones that they're entitled to, they know they've gotten far more than what the value of their monthly subscription is for that month, right? So like the incentives are all aligned, like I said. That's just a specific example. I will say, as I've experimented with this model, because really the most successful lawyers in this space, they just target one market. That's it, just one. I'm targeting three markets, right? I have three buckets, like everyday people, freelancers, small business owners. And my subscription levels on my website, subscriptionattorney.com, they all have the pricing for all those. They have most of my a la carte flat fee pricing on there to the extent I have it, and it all defaults to $50 a page. If for some reason I don't have a specific flat fee for that type of a transaction, including subscription add-ons, which is another really interesting thing that law firm owners should consider using. And frankly, any subscription business should consider a subscription add-on as a great tool in your arsenal to give somebody access to subscription benefits, but maybe they don't need everything, and maybe that those subscription add-ons are bundled in for a better price at a higher subscription tier, which is what I do. But for the $20 a month subscribers, if they need me to negotiate something for them, it's another $200 a month while that negotiation is taking place, right? And then as soon as the negotiations are over, the $200 a month falls off. They're back down to 20 a month. Now for my business level subscribers and up, that's just bundled back into that subscription. We're assuming if they're paying me as much as it states on my website, which right now the starting price is $2,500 a month, I'm going to be doing some negotiating for them. We're just going to assume that, right? And
Uh-huh.
so I'm able to bundle that back in at a higher to subscription tier. So a small business owner might start out because they're trying to save money, and I appreciate that because that's what I would do. And then eventually they get to a point where they realize, wow, I haven't had to think about legal things for the last 6 months. I like this. I don't want to think about even more legal things. And so I'm just going to outsource all my legal work to Mathew. That's what I'm going to do. And then they subscribe at the higher level. And for them, it's the cost of what they would pay like an entry level worker. But now they got all their legal stuff taken care of. And I really only need 10 clients to go back to your question, 10 to 20 clients that are paying me 2,500 a month or more. And I'm done. Like, but the thing is my mission is uh, I want to create an environment where legal services are accessible to people that have been long unserved by the legal profession. And so, to my wife's chagrin, I'm not just targeting business clients to sign up and subscribe with me. And I do have several. So, like, business is good, but I could probably I'd have a totally different business if I just focused on the business clients, but I really like helping out everyday people with their legal things,
Uh-huh.
and they really like knowing that, okay, this 1 or 2 page contract, something happened to me or I'm hiring somebody to come to my home, they gave me a contract. Took my dog to the groomer, they gave me a contract. I'm a comedian and I went to a club and they gave me a contract. And like these are all like 5 pages or less contracts, most of them 1 or 2 pages, and they know they're already paying me $20 a month. It's only going to be 50 or $100 to get like a redlined contract and an explanation of legal advice on this thing. Like it is a no-brainer for them to do that. And is that a high percentage of my revenue? No. But I went to law school to help people, and I'm helping people affordably and profitably.
Mathew, what do you wish that before a person came to you, right, that the normal person knew, as far as before they became a client, things that they could understand about your profession and about the services that you're going to be able to provide before they actually showed up? Because I think a lot of times we see a lawyer, we think, oh, wow, they're going to solve every challenge. And I just go in with that thought process. And then when you don't solve every challenge, including me not having to do dishes at home, or my wife is acting up, or my puppy pooped on the floor like he did this morning, then I think, well, Mathew, what's your solution? How could you prep us to be more ready so we become your ultimate client?
First of all, I love talking to clients about stuff like that. And I always try to bring a legal thing into it so that we can make sure we're preserving attorney-client privilege. Well, do you have a contract with your spouse about who's required in the household to clean up the dog poop when they poop inside the house? Like, no, I'm just sort of making that up on the fly. But I actually find that my clients do talk to me about a lot of personal stuff like that. And I like being able to help them and give advice. Like, I can't give legal advice about things like that, right? But I am their confidant, right? I am their consigliere. And so, like, they talk to me about things that have nothing to do with legal. But at the end of the day, and one of my pitches, if I'm at like a pitch opportunity, is I explain that law is the operating system of society. It's always there, running in the background, whether you think about it or not, right? Now, this does go to the heart of your question, because I've actually tried, I'm actively trying to do something to solve that problem that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Our society doesn't do a good job, and I can really only speak to the US because that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a good job of teaching civics anymore, of teaching things about the legal system or about laws. Like, we teach a little bit about the US Constitution. There's a lot of information out there about your rights as a student or your rights as a child in divorce. But as kids, we don't learn about the law. Like, I had to spend a lot of money to learn like basic things about the legal system and about negligence, for example, right? Like I think when I'm done paying off my student loans, I will have paid $250,000, maybe a little bit more, right? To like learn all these things, to have the privilege of learning things everybody should know. And so I have a podcast called the Law for Kids Podcast, lawforkidspodcast.com, and LFK Pod on all socials. I've got the first season out there of 8 episodes, and I'm working on the next one. My kid does some voiceover for me, which is fun. She loves coming in the studio. She looks at the microphone and she goes, testing, 1, 2, 3. She's 3.5. It's great. And so I'm trying to like explain in 1 minute or less these legal concepts so people could more understand, like, what is negligence? What are damages? Like, that's the thing I find myself explaining a lot, which is why it's one of my first episodes. And that is like, yes, you may have a right to sue. You may have a cause of action. What are the damages? Can you even prove the damages? Like that's a big question. And that's true in any practice area in litigation where you might have to sue. Like, I see a lot in like contractual disputes, or, there's obviously the personal injury space, right? And so, and if somebody wants to sue for emotional distress, I get that question a lot. Can I sue for emotional distress? Oh, yeah, sure. You might be able to prove the first 3 elements of negligence, but the 4th is damages. And so, can you prove damages? Did you see a therapist? Did you go to a psychologist? Like, usually we're tying in emotional distress as an additional claim to something else because it's hard to prove. Like, it's hard to prove damages. And so damages is sort of the question I get asked about the most, or I find myself explaining the most, because people are not thinking about disputes in terms of damages and recovering damages. And look, you've seen lawsuits where people sue and they ask for $0 because they just want a jury of their peers to say they were right. Now, those people tend to have a lot of money, or it's like a legal aid organization, because the lawyers are still getting paid, believe me, or they're hitting their pro bono hour requirements or something, right? But yeah, that seems to be the biggest one that I find myself explaining a lot.
So how about, let's take it through the 3. You got the individual person that your wife said you need to move on from. You've got the solopreneur, the individual that, has a business. And then you've got the small business. let's start with the small business. What are the things that they're not prepared for, that they're unaware of, that could cause challenge, and you can that we could solve before they ever stepped into them? What would be the top three things?
It's a really good question because most people are not looking to pay for problem avoidance. They're looking to pay for problem solving. Yeah, I've talked with a lot of like legal marketers and stuff, right? They're like, we need to market, or people don't search for problem avoidance. They search with intention to solve a problem. And that's true. And so I actually do get most of my clients when there's some kind of problem that already exists.
Yeah.
And then I try to help them solve it as much as we can and then move into a problem avoidance space. Like I was just at some event where somebody came up to me. This is a classic, and there's a lot of this, and there's a lot of opportunity for doing what I do in cultures that are not English first speaking culture. But this was an immigrant who started a business, like 30 years ago, right? But didn't grow up in the United States. Small business owner, cabinets, and things like that, and they're being sued over a contractual dispute with a vendor, with a provider for services to his business. And even though I gave my like 30-second pitch, because we all went around the room and gave our 30-second pitch, he came up to me and he was like, "I need you to help me with something in court on Monday." It was a Friday, and I was like, let me explain. Like I don't do that kind of thing. Like I will help you settle and resolve disputes. And I'll even do it if you're in litigation. I just won't. I'm not the attorney who shows up in court for you. And there's not enough time for me to do anything by Monday, and it's Friday. That like substantively, like he's going to be defaulted on Monday if he doesn't show up and file an answer and all that stuff, appearance and answer and all that stuff. So I used to be a litigator, so I actually put him in touch with some litigators. But we got to talking, and he was like, "Well, if you don't go to court, like as a lawyer, like what do you do?" And I said, "I help clients like you, possibly, avoid even ending up in a situation where you've been sued in the first place, because when you entered into that contract with that advertising company, did you read the contract? No. Well, for $50 a page, or that's one of many contracts of however many projects I'm helping you with for legal things a month, like I will make sure that that thing is, you're not going to get screwed over again in that sort of a situation. And if they do sue you, you're going to have an ironclad defense, or we could leverage that potential ironclad defense to settle to avoid ending up in litigation where it's a Friday, you need an attorney by Monday, right? So like that's the type of, like, my best clients are already in the mindset of outsourcing. So like freelancers are good clients for me because they have the same pitch that I do. You shouldn't be writing your own copy. Let me write your copy for you. Well, I tell them you shouldn't be doing your own legal. Let me help you with legal stuff, right? Like you shouldn't be doing your own art on Stability AI or whatever AI thing. Let me create the art for your thing. Well, let me do your legal thing for you. So like freelancers, it's an easy pitch because if they're successful, that's their pitch too. So like they're in the mindset of outsourcing and not like focusing on your zone of genius, right? And so for small business owners, if they're using a fractional CFO, if they're using a fractional HR company, like they are already in the mindset of I could pay a fraction of the price for the thing I'm doing myself, and that allows me to get back to what I enjoy or makes me money in my business. That's what it allows you to do, right? So really, like it's part, like the biggest thing is they just are not thinking of things that happen in their business as legal things. It's all a legal thing. It's all a legal thing. Like every interaction with an employee, how you're doing a transaction, if people are buying things in your store or whatever, like it's all a legal thing. Now you get to not worry about that legal stuff, or you could see the matrix with my help, right? Like that's like what you're able to do because I'm the legal operating system expert for a reasonable price that helps you avoid, when the system is down, to come in and have to boot you back up. Like we just keep the system working in your favor as best we can.
So I'm a math guy, and I'm looking at it, and at $2,500 a month, which is that one that you talked about. If you get 10 of those people to that place, then you're in a fairly good spot. For me as a business owner, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh wow, there's 4 weeks in a month. That's $625 a week, and $625 a week is, I mean, a little over $15 an hour. So you're talking in California, that's not even a minimum wage worker. And to be able to have your legal services for a minimum wage employee Tell me the difference between a company that uses you and that shouldn't use you.
If a company is at the level where if they're at my highest subscription and I am still not taking care of all their legal things because they have to go over the amount of projects that are allotted, and I haven't found that client yet, they are probably not a good fit. They need a full-time in-house attorney or even a legal team. I do have one client who is moving in that direction. And so part of the process there, like I am trying to build out things like contract playbooks, right? So like whomever they hire for an in-house attorney, for a full-time in-house attorney, they already can hit the ground running with things that I've helped develop for them. Because at the end of the day, if that client or another client that gets to that point, like offers me a job as a full-time in-house attorney, I would definitely consider it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do really like being my own boss.
Okay.
I like helping people like we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not dependent on any one client. And if you're an in-house attorney, your employer is your client. And so
Yeah.
my risk is distributed, right? So like if I lost any one client, like I'm still a profitable business. I'll make it up, right? Somewhere else, I'll sign up another client or 2 or 3, or depending on which level, or I'll incentivize a subscriber at a lower level to start bumping up, right? And I like to do things that don't scale because it allows for a better interpersonal relationship between me and my clients. So like I'm not a software business. I'm not just trying to get my clients to go from good to better pricing to better to best pricing. Like that's not my goal. If it makes sense for them, I'm going to let them know, but I'm not going to try to get them to do that just to make more money because I want them to be happy and I want them to stay subscribed. But like if a client got to that level, I would assume that I would have to start preparing for they're going to hire a full-time in-house attorney. I've helped get that attorney off on a really good footing because they're going to have all these, contract playbooks and things will be well organized for them to hit the ground running. And I suspect that at least in the first few months, if not the first year, that this first full-time in-house attorney comes in to work for this company full-time, that they will probably not be paying me whatever they were paying me before, but a smaller amount to still be available every month to help this in-house attorney as their fractional outside counsel, right? So like I foresee an off-ramp in those circumstances, right? And that's okay because that business might not have ever gotten there if it wasn't for me helping with the legal stuff in the first place, because legal stuff could blow up in your face and then it could ruin your business. Well, I help avoid those situations from happening. I think about, are you familiar with the book Black Swan?
Yes.
I haven't read the most recent version, but I read the one before COVID and after the subprime mortgage crisis. And one of the examples Taleb gives in there is imagine if somebody, like some congressperson, like was able to push through some legislation that required locked doors on all airplanes before 9/11 happened. Well, 9/11 might not have ever happened, and nobody would have known. Nobody would have known. Because they wouldn't have been able to get in the cockpit, right? So I help clients avoid legal black swan events like that. And so we don't really know what I'm helping them avoid, but because I'm there to help them avoid it, now they could get to the maybe size of their business where they're hiring a full-time in-house attorney. And at that point, they're no longer a good fit. But one of the reasons I like working with mom and pops and I like working with brick and mortars and franchise owners is because their goal is not growth for the sake of growth. It's just to have a profitable, sustainable business, and they don't want to have to worry about the legal stuff. And so they're a really good client for me for that reason, because they're never going to get to the point that they need a full-time in-house attorney because that's not the nature of their business.
What about, let's talk to the attorney, because now like it makes sense. When I was looking at it at first, and when I saw it, and when I was doing my study on you, the subscription attorney, I was like, I mean, I like you. You know what I'm saying? I liked your picture. You're a handsome guy, got a smooth head. You don't got no bumps on your head. You're good. But I was like, I don't know. And then now as I'm looking at it, I'm like, this makes sense, especially from a business owner, from a small business owner, even up to 85 employees. With my wife and I at one point, this was something that I was very fortunate because I have an attorney as a brother, but most business owners don't have that. talk to the attorneys, because again, like we're given that 30,000 foot view. We're in the plane and you're like, yo, this can work. What are some of the initial things to be able to get in place before a person gets really excited and puts on their website a subscription is available and then gets themselves in trouble because they can't actually deliver on the subscription?
Yeah, well, plug for NiftyCon. I think you could still buy tickets, although I think the room block may not be available anymore. But this is what my hour-long CLE presentation
Yeah,
will talk about at NiftyCon, right? So I could go into more details there. But basically, you got to have the tech in place. Like I mean, to bring it back to the earlier part of our conversation,
absolutely.
right? Like, and the other thing, and why I really love that NiftyCon invited me to be one of the speakers, is
Can you
because
do me a favor? Can you do me a favor, Kerbis? My brother lives in
yeah,
Las Vegas, and my buddy Nate lives in Lompoc, California. Both of them need to be at NiftyCon, and I have invited them because my brother's little brother is keynoting there, and Nate's very good friend that loves you a lot is keynoting there, and I'm going to be with my friend Mathew Kerbis. Can you
yeah.
tell them that they should come to NiftyCon and spend this weekend with us?
Yeah, I mean, so while I haven't been to NiftyCon before, I've been to a lot of legal conferences. And one of the problems with a lot of legal conferences is also one of the pros in that there's tons of people there and it's overwhelming. And you don't know, there are those chance meetings that never happen because there's thousands of people there. Well, what's nice about NiftyCon is we're talking about like 80 to 100 people. Like we're going to get a chance to get to know everybody there. And with regard to the speakers, I mean, present company included. Why not pat ourselves on the back a little bit, Kelly? Like they've got a great lineup of speakers, right? And if you're one of those attorneys that's like, I can't go to conferences unless I'm getting continuing legal education credit, well, guess what? You're going to be able to get some CLE while you're there. And I'm going to pat myself on the back once more because I connected them with a contact of mine at Lawline where they will do in-person accreditation for CLE. Because I saw them doing it at a conference in Chicago, and I'm faculty. So like you could also go and see my Lawline courses. Combined, they've got thousands of views, average 4.9 out of 5 stars. I do talk about these topics, but what's nice about the NiftyCon presentation that I get to give is I'm giving it for the first time in the context of ethics. Like Gen AI is changing the landscape when it comes to being able to be competent and to have a ethical fee structure. And so I get into both the Gen AI of it all and explaining it in such a way that you could leave being competent in your use of the tech, and then how you could have a more profitable fee structure and all the tech to do that. Now that Gen AI, you understand, if you were to basically, it comes down to 50xing your billable rate. Like that's an unethical fee, probably in most jurisdictions, right? So like, what do? Well, you use the subscription and or flat fee model, and I explain all the tech in order to do that. And it sounds like, how the heck do you explain that in 1 hour? Well, I do. And there's a lot of opportunities for you as the lawyer who attends to do follow-up research and come and chat with me, like in between things. And at the end, like I'm actually going to be there through the night of the last day. So like and I don't leave until the next morning. So like I'll be around even after the conference is over. And that's one of the best parts about these conferences is it's not just the keynote speaker or the other presenters. It's like the conversations that you have when like in between speakers. Wow, that thing Kelly said, it blew my mind, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm talking, and like you make a connection with somebody about something that that inspired you from one of the speakers. Like those things only happen in person. And like I love a good virtual conference. I love good virtual stuff. Kelly, you and I would not have had a chance to talk if it wasn't for the virtual world we live in. But you can't beat being in person, shaking people's hands, giving people hugs, like feeling that energy in the room, you know? And the marketing side of it is, to get back to like my earlier point that I was trying to make, is you could have all the cool tech, you could have the best business model, and I think I have both of those. But if you can't get clients, you know, if you can't market yourself, if you can't let people know that you exist, or market to existing clients to make them come back or stay subscribed if you use the subscription model, then you will not succeed as a business owner. And that's true of any business, not just law. And I feel like at NiftyCon, like that's going to be a major, major takeaway. Like there's a lot of great tech shows. Like I'm a speaker at ABA Tech Show. Like you learn about tech and stuff, but you don't learn a lot about marketing or about getting those clients, and to go to a conference that's focused on what I think is the single most important part of being a law firm owner or a business owner in general is sales and marketing and advertising. Like, you got to get the business. So that's why they should come.
Have you met Harlan Schillinger also?
So he will be moderating a panel
Oh
that
yeah.
I'm on, and so I did I did chat with him just a little bit in
Oh
preparation for
man.
that, but I hadn't had a chance to meet him before. But Kelly, after I talked to him, the NiftyCon folks said that he came on your podcast, so I did listen to that episode, also to get ready to come on your show as well.
He's a
And
bad
so,
man. He is a
yeah,
bad man. I mean, Harlan is unreal. You know, I mean, I love it. The fact that his bio shot, he has a martini, and you know what I'm saying? Like he looks like James Bond in there. But he's a genius when it comes to the marketing side.
yeah, and I could hear, because I didn't actually see him, we were on a phone call. I could hear the gears turning when I was talking about the subscription model and
Mm-hmm.
like the make money marketing versus spend money marketing implications of something like that. And there's no one right solution to every problem, right? So like, just because I'm saying you can make money marketing instead of spend money marketing, that doesn't mean you don't spend on marketing. I mean, I don't, but I'm profitable and I have happy clients and I'm trying to stay small. I'm not trying to grow into the next big law firm. The goal for me is sustainable lifestyle business. That's it. And teach and inspire other lawyers to do the same thing, right? So, but for a lot, but I've talked to some lawyers who want to do what I do, and I've helped them, and they want to grow to the next big thing. Well, they can't just get away with just making money marketing. They're gonna have to spend money marketing. And a guy like Harlan, who, as you declared him the godfather of legal marketing, um, he's a guy to listen to and learn from and to watch what he's done.
How interesting was it when you heard, because coming from a lawyer, when he said that marketing is like presenting to a jury?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, and it's not just as a lawyer, right? I'm somebody who both my parents are in sales. One of my grandmothers was one of the first women realtors back in the day. Like, a working woman back then was unheard of, and she was in sales, right? So I come from a long line of salespeople, and one of my grandfathers was a door to door salesman at one point. So it's one of these things where it's kind of in my blood, and or to the extent that I've just always been raised around sales and being in that sales mindset. And I remember being with my dad in like a mall. So for the Gen Z and Gen Alpha listeners, a mall was a place we used to go where they had all the stores in one place. It was like Amazon, but in person. And there was food there too. I guess Amazon owns Whole Foods now. So yeah, it was like Amazon in person. And like there's all these little kiosks like in the center of the hallway that you're walking through. And my dad would be like, "Oh, they're just trying to sell you something." And like sometimes there'd be a guy who like was like holding out a bag like this, and like something that you could grab or something like that. And like my dad was like taken by it and he grabbed it to look at it because the guy held it out. He's like, "That's a good technique. I like that technique." So like my whole life growing up, like my dad was explaining like everything's a sale to me. So I may be in a unique circumstance where I absolutely agree with Harlan, right? Like we're always selling ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the thing about that is you could do it, and he talked a little bit about this. You could do it genuinely or disingenuously. And so, like, but when you understand that, right? When you understand that it's all a sale at all times, you just got to be yourself. And I hope that person is a good person. And if you're not, there's a lot of people you could talk to help you get to that point in your life. There's a lot of good help these days.
So help me with this. The three people, that individual, the solopreneur, the business owner. Which one? Who's not a good candidate for your services? Like, let's talk to the individual. If you are X, you're just not. It's not a good fit, and I probably wouldn't be the best for you. Let's start
Yeah,
with that.
so applying to all of them, it's I'm in litigation. I've been sued, or my dispute has reached such a tipping point that I need to file a lawsuit, or I've tried to negotiate and settle a dispute and it's blown up in my face. And now, even if I hired you to help try to negotiate, I think that this landlord, so for example, I represent landlords and tenants in their disputes before they get into court, because at the end of the day, like in litigation, in particular in the billable hour space, or the flat fee litigation spaces, only the lawyers win. They make money no matter what. unless you're in the contingency space, right? So that's another reason why I don't do litigation, is because like the lawyers will win no matter what. And I try to avoid that. So if you've gotten to such a fever pitch in your dispute where even bringing a lawyer in at this point is not going to help, be it you need to file a lawsuit, you've been sued, you're about to be sued, whatever, like I am not a good fit for you. But guess what? Whenever I'm not a good fit, there are thousands, maybe thousands and thousands of lawyers, maybe tens of thousands, depending on which state you live in, that are ready to help you. It's just going to cost more than what I charge. Part of the reason being that like if I were to just do litigation on a subscription, I think I could probably do it. But I can't both do transactional and litigation. And being the experimenter and disruptor that I am, I'm already doing 3 different business models in one with the 3 buckets that you want me to talk about. So like I can't bring in litigation into that too. I've just got to stay in the transactional and litigation avoidance space. Because at the end of the day, I still consider litigation avoidance transactional because you're signing a settlement and release agreement. So that's a transaction. That's a contract, right?
Yeah.
So like that's in all instances, right? Like I don't do criminal law. I don't get anywhere close even before there's an issue. I don't do immigration. But I've learned enough about some of those areas, having co-counseled for some clients who I have to refer to other attorneys, that like I can advise around it so I could better ascertain whether or not, okay, this actually is an immigration thing. Or like I do a lot of prenups, if you could believe it. A lot of people get married these days. They're children of divorce. Their parents were divorced. And even if they don't have a lot of money, they just don't want to go through what they saw their parents go through. So actually prenups is a great business to be in. You just got to take a few CLEs to get up to speed and read the applicable statutes in your state. And it's not a highly difficult area of law to learn. And in particular, since I never litigate, I'm not incentivized to not make that prenup as ironclad as possible because I'm not making money when they get divorced because I don't do litigation, right? So I get a lot of folks who are doing prenups. And so I once had a client who she was not she was not a legal citizen yet. And she hadn't even started that process. And so I knew that just doing a prenup for her was not going to be enough. And there's also, they wanted her and her spouse, her and her fiance, um, and his attorney too, kind of agreed with me because I was the first lawyer they talked to. They wanted to put something in there about like green card status and he'll sponsor her and some other things. And we were like, um, we want this document to be valid. And we also want your immigration process to go smoothly. And if you put in a contract that you're going to do all these things, it maybe looks like that's the reason you're getting into the relationship. So maybe we put you in touch with an immigration attorney first. And that's what we did. Right. And so like learning a little bit enough about certain areas that even I don't touch to know, oh, this is definitely an immigration thing. And I don't touch that. So and so I made a few referrals. And what's nice about having my podcast is I know a lot of attorneys who have either flat fee and or subscription pricing. So I was able to refer her to a few immigration attorneys that I've had on the pod that I know, because most of the time clients come to me because they're price sensitive. And so, and that's not to say that the bad client for me is not somebody with, mega millions or something like that. Although, frankly, they're also probably a bad client for me, if I'm being honest with you, Kelly, because they could afford these traditionally priced attorneys. And I do offer simple estate plans, like for these prenup clients, because they're just getting married. They're in the beginning of their life, usually. I do some second or third marriage prenups from time to time. But like most of my prenup clients, they have a truly simple estate. And like I could do like a slightly more nuanced estate. Like if somebody really just has like a few assets and a few liabilities, like I could probably help you out with that kind of a thing for an estate plan. But at the end of the day, if you've got mega millions, I'm not the right lawyer for you. And you could afford a traditionally priced attorney. So as much as other lawyers might say, yes, I'll take your money and I'll help you out, I would say, like, you should use an estate planning attorney that specializes in the mega wealthy. Like, as much as I'd love to help you, and you could still pay me $20 a month if you want a second opinion on some things, because you could afford it.
Yeah.
Let's be real. But they are not the right client for me either, right? Like the super rich, the super wealthy, like lawyers are targeting that red ocean.
Uh-huh.
I am targeting the blue ocean, right? Like I'm targeting the latent legal market. When Uber came around, they were a disruptor, but were they really? Because the cab cabbies were only serving 6% of the market of people who would use a rideshare service. They just weren't able to service outside of the city that they were in. So Uber came in, and most of Uber's market share was a market that was latent and it didn't exist before. Well, my hypothesis is the same thing is true with legal. There's a massive latent market that traditionally priced lawyers are not serving. Those are my clients in Illinois, because I'm only licensed in Illinois, right? So like those are my clients, not not institutional clients, although institutional clients who are business owners do love me because they're like, you mean I know what my annual legal spend is going to be, or approximately? Like, this is amazing. So they are my happiest clients, my institutional clients. But I'm really not even targeting them in my marketing and in all that stuff. I'm targeting the latent legal market, the blue ocean of potential clients. They're the right fit for me. So yeah, certain practice areas like immigration, criminal, litigation, not a good fit. The existing market, oftentimes not a good fit for me.
On the personal side, how do you stay away from the comparison part? Because when you start working your land, which you're doing, and I want to compliment you on this, this is unreal to be able to see you work your land, you know exactly who you are, you know exactly who you serve, and you're like, if that's not it, I'm not your guy. That's amazing. There's the human side that comes in sometimes with comparison. Do you have that, or are you not human?
Well, I definitely don't have a canned response. And I was actually thinking there. So for the people who are like, did Mathew just freeze up?
No, I love this. That's why.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, and so I think I understand the question, and I could answer the question I think you asked, but let's just be clear. Like, could you ask it to be, ask it in another way so I understand what you're asking.
So when you see other people in the profession and they're going after and they're getting X rewards, or you see a person on a billboard and they're doing these things, and it's human to compare, right? So if you get a new car, no matter what car you get, I don't care if you get the greatest car of all time. You drive down the street, you see somebody else, and they have a car that maybe has one more feature. You're like, man, my car sucks. I need to get that other car. How do you keep yourself out of comparison when you're working your land?
Well, that is the ultimate question. Like, do you ask that of all your guests? Because that's a
No,
really
I
good
asked you,
question.
Kerbis, because I'm hanging out with you, man.
That's a really important question, and I actually am totally content, if you could believe it. And it's not just my monk haircut that allows me to be totally content. Although I will say that when you do just get rid of certain things in your life, like even your hair, like you do stop thinking about things like that, right? Now, that's not to say I had a choice in the matter. Like, I started losing my hair as a 20-year-old, and I was just like I my parents wanted me to try Rogaine, so like I tried Rogaine. It wasn't working, and I was like, I'm just gonna embrace this. I'm just gonna embrace going bald, and I'm gonna shave my head. And really, my dentist said it. I was like 20 years old. My dentist said it to me the best, because you see your dentist only every 6 months. So like the last time he saw me, I had a full head of hair, and then I was bald. And he said, "So when nature takes over, you just go with the flow, huh?" And I said, "Yes, yes." And I am just going to apply that sort of like mindset in my life, right? Like I context always helps, right? Like, if like my only takeaway sometimes, if I'm speaking to like a group of students or at the right event or whatever, I'll say, if you only remember 2 words that I say to you today, it's context matters. Well, I could really appreciate my context in that I'm a relatively privileged white man who grew up in the United States in a family that didn't have everything, but we had enough. And that still put me in a situation to have drive to pursue something, but then also learned that I was lucky. I was so lucky. I think it was from the book, The Last Lecture. Like, I won the parent lottery. Like, my parents raised me really well. And not everybody has that set of circumstances. And I was raised in a community where I learned, like, I grew up in the suburbs of Illinois, and we were also a relatively purple state, right? Like, we have a lot of Democrats. Democrats usually win, but Republicans, we have great Republican representation too in Congress. I think of like, now his name's escaping me, but our Republican representative who just spoke at the DNC, for example, right? Like, you get a lot of like across the aisle collaboration and whatnot in Illinois. So I grew up with also values from across the aisle from the 2 most popular political perspectives, right? So like, I was able to always see things a little bit more like that. And the point is that I, at an early age, was able to appreciate that I am very lucky. And so I have nothing to complain about. And to find a way to be happy with what I have, and that's enough. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I just spoke to some law students last week, and one of the students could not believe that I did not want to just take this really innovative model and scale it as big as I could get and like make as much money as possible. I don't need as much money as possible. Like I don't. And so I don't need the fancy car. Like I don't need all those fancy things. I'm very happy with what I have. I have simple wants and they're all fulfilled. And so I am not human, I guess is the answer to your question.
Well, I appreciate it, man, and that perspective is great. And what I loved about it is that you did pause, right? And because that's why we started the podcast in the first place, is not to just talk about what people did, but to understand who they are. And if people understood who the people are, they'll consume whatever it is that they have. And that part was fitting, and especially with your pause, because it took the canned part, and you even said it, where you had to sit in it for a second. So that brings me to the point. I started the podcast because of my two kids, Maddox and McKenna. Actually, with the podcast too, we created a couple of different shows on the same podcast. So we created one that's called Inchstone. So I do, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, and I do it, daily, except for the last couple of days because I didn't have a USB port, as I talked about earlier, that I needed to change. So I do that one, 3,000-year-old wisdom, and we bring it into today. It's 15, 20 minutes. People can walk, take me on their walk, whatever it is. The second one is what you're experiencing now, where I take iconic people, disruptors like Mathew Kerbis, that is an absolute genius in his work, but also he's an even better person in his heart. And then we have one, and Mathew, you're probably going to be on this at some point, called You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live and then I just call my friends randomly without them knowing that they're on the podcast. But the original idea was I wanted my two kids, Maddox and McKenna, to never worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by icons like yourself. So what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Maddox and McKenna, let me tell you, life is amazing. And you're going to learn a lot of things, in particular in this information age that we live in today. And how you filter that is also really important. And you're going to filter that through your experience, and that's okay. And if you were listening to the whole podcast before this, which, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, I'm going to tell you that there are two words that you should never forget that are really important. And that is context matters. And what's great about that is the more you learn and the older you get, that meaning of what that means is going to change for you too. And so take that for what it's worth, and whatever other great nuggets of wisdom that you've gotten from your dad's podcast. Think about context matters, and context changes. When you learn something, how it applies to you now, that same lesson might apply differently when you're older. And when you're a parent one day, and you're thinking about doing something like what your dad did for you. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that, because I am also a parent of a young child. And so I think about how do I inspire her a lot too. But that is my ultimate takeaway that I could ever give to anybody. And that's true of the CLE at NiftyCon that I'll be giving, is here's a bunch of stuff. You have to apply it to your situation, right? So context matters is my ultimate lesson.
Mathew, we're going to have all your links to your podcast, to everything on in the bio, and I encourage you, if you haven't been listening to Mathew's podcasts, plural. Yeah, right. If you haven't come in contact with him, I encourage you to consume. It's been a pleasure, man. And I was telling you before that I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life, and I can't wait to spend time in person there at NiftyCon. Can you give one last charge to Rob and Nate to be at NiftyCon?
Rob, Nate, what are you doing? Sign up for NiftyCon. And you know what? How about this? This is how we're going to make it. We're going to make it work. Let me get the credit for you signing up. Reach out to me, and I'll give you my link where you get 50% off. not Kelly's. And so then I'll get the credit. But Kelly doesn't care because that means you're going to be there at NiftyCon. So if you want, and that's true for anybody, I think I hope I still have a 50% off code. I'm sure that I do. And if I don't, I'm going to reach out to the Nifty folks and they're going to make sure that they reactivate that for me. But you could reach out to me directly. LinkedIn is the best place to find me. The Subscription Attorney. If you search that, you'll find me. Also Kerbis, Kerbis, Mathew with 1 T. And DM me on LinkedIn and I'll give you the code for the 50% off from NiftyCon.
Well, I love you, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to be able to have you on again. I definitely want to have another episode, if not multiple, with you, because I think it's absolutely genius what you're doing, man. And I just want to congratulate. I want to speak life into that, because being a disruptor is a lonely road, but also too, I want to encourage you in it. And this has been incredible to be able to spend some time with you, man.
The feeling is absolutely mutual. And just, let me know. I mean, I work as a virtual law firm. Like I'm pretty much always at my desk. Well, I'm not always available to pick up the phone. I'm in deep work mode sometimes. I will, if I finish a call and I saw you called me 2 minutes ago because I was on Do Not Disturb, I'm calling you back right away to show up on your podcast, just to let you know. So challenge accepted is what I'm saying, Kelly. Yes. Challenge accepted.
Well, I appreciate you, man. You're incredible. And for all of you out there listening and subscribing, if you're listening, you're not subscribed, go ahead and do it. Click the link, do the thing. You guys know what to do, but we appreciate you. And Mathew, you're officially off that seat.